My name is Stan Raper. I'm the national coordinator for the Agriculture Workers Alliance, which is partnered with UFCW Canada.
Now, yesterday you had a news conference here in Vancouver about the blacklisting of some of your members and farm workers who are involved in union work.
Yeah, we have filed unfair labor practice charges against the Mexican consulate here in Vancouver for basically blacklisting our members from returning back from Mexico to Canada to work. They're UFCW Local 1518 members. We have two farms, Florelia and Sea-Doo Nurseries, who have collective agreements. They've negotiated and voted on their contracts. They overwhelmingly voted to join our union. And over a 1 year period with Sea-Doo and a 2 year period with Florelia, the Mexican consulate and some of the employer associations have continued to intimidate and harass workers to the point where now workers have not been returned, and the ones that are here, which are a very small number, have decided to file for decertification, and we have challenged at the board, arguing that the reason why our workers aren't here is because the consulate has intervened in the returning of workers to Canada.
How did you get onto this? What makes you believe that the consulate's involved in this?
Well, we provided at the press conference documents obtained by basically an electronic brown envelope, if we can. New mass media, social media ways of getting information sent to us. And in that document, it clearly identified the Vancouver consulate phoning specific individuals in Mexico, identifying trade union activists and advising them not to be sent back.
That's pretty tough opposition for a farm worker.
Well, they basically, these workers have not been returned. They're not here. They can't speak for themselves, and I'm sure if they were here, they would speak for themselves. And we are putting together a press conference in Mexico with a number of these workers who have been blacklisted, and they will be doing their testimonials and presenting their affidavits to the Senate in Mexico City in the next week or two, and we anticipate that the evidence will be overwhelming in terms of our case.
Your union has been active, to say the very least, on behalf of farm workers across Canada. Tell me some of the campaigns and battles that you've been involved in, please.
Well, when I first started with UFCW, we had just finished working on the Global Justice Caravan project. It was really one of the first projects in Canada where volunteers from universities, labor activists would travel around the province of Ontario and document the plight of migrant farm workers. From that documentation, we did a national report on the status of migrant workers, and that report has continued every year, and we send it to every elected official in the country, provincial and federal, as well as the sending countries: Jamaica, Mexico, Guatemala, Thailand. That national report makes a number of recommendations in terms of the low-skilled worker program, or undergrade 12 equivalent, NOC C&D as the federal government calls it, and the seasonal agriculture worker program. We argue that our immigration system is broken, that it needs major overhauls in terms of allowing workers who have been coming for up to 40 years, since 1966 with the Jamaican workers, 1974 with Mexico, where workers are spending 8 months of the year in Canada, to not have a path to citizenship, similar to the live-in caregiver program, where after 2 years they can apply for status. That seasonal agriculture workers have systematically been discriminated against in terms of their ability to have dual citizenship or status in order to stay. They have full-time jobs, basically, or 8 months of the year anyways. And that if you talk to a worker like I did in Niagara last year 41 years coming to Canada 8 months of the year, working basically for 2 employers over that 41-year period, and not having the ability to be able to have dual citizenship, stay in Canada if he wanted, bring his family over. He talked a lot about family separation, about what it was like to miss his kids growing up, not being with his wife, the depression, problems with alcoholism, the social cost of the temporary foreign worker program have been analyzed by the academic community, but ignored by our governments, both sending countries and federal. And I think the Canadian people need to understand, and we try to educate the Canadian population about the problems with temporary foreign worker programs versus immigrants coming to Canada and helping to build our country. These are hardworking, honest people that deserve better.
It's almost an invisible problem, though, because 80% of Canada's population is in cities. These workers are predominantly in rural areas. Most Canadians don't have much contact even with them. Most don't know much about it. How do you bring this issue to the Canadian public?
Well, we use just about every tool possible. We have websites, we have Facebook pages, we do outreach, we do speaking engagements at universities, high schools, church groups, labor meetings, labor councils, anyone who will listen to us, basically. And it's an extensive campaign, but we also do community organizing. One of the examples is Father's Day. On Father's Day, most families in Canada get together with their family and celebrate their fathers and their families. And we get these workers together, and they make their own signs, basically saying, "I'm a father too. I don't get to spend time with my children because I'm here working. I'm separated."
Food on your table.
Putting food on their table, and they make their own signs, and they put their children's pictures on those signs. And we go to Queen's Park. We go to community settings across the country where our 10 centers are, and we go to the public with these signs, with those workers, and try and tell a story of family separation and the pain and the hardship of these workers. And it's real and it's effective. And when community people see these workers and the pictures of their families, they get it. They finally start to understand that temporary foreign workers programs aren't sustainable. They're not sustainable for the workers that are coming here, and they're not sustainable for this country in terms of real growth and real progress.
Now, of course, we have a Harper majority government, and even in minority, the Harper government made a number of policy changes that negatively affected temporary foreign workers. How are you going to deal with this?
Well, the same way we dealt with Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin when the Liberals introduced these programs. Let's remember who started them, and let's remind ourselves who's finishing them. The Liberals federally started these temporary foreign worker programs. The federal government is adding on to programs that really are exploiting vulnerable people who don't have jobs, who are coming from countries where they're impoverished, can't find work, and exploiting those types of vulnerable people is not the Canadian way. And I don't think most Canadians agree with the changes to our immigration system, where temp foreign workers last year surpassed the number of immigrants coming to this country. Most people, when they understand the figures, when they see the figures, when they understand it, when they get it, they're offended and they're outraged. And they then become angry to the point where they start sending letters. They start to think about what the impact is on the community and for the food that they eat. And then it becomes real. And we're working day in, day out, trying to educate the population about this exploitive, discriminatory type of program.
Farm work is a very low-paid form of work, and so as a union, even when you manage to organize, the union can't realize much income from membership dues. You've been involved in court actions. We know these are terribly expensive. How does your union manage this?
Well, our union is an international union. We have over 1 million members, and we put aside from the dues that members pay a few pennies from each member, and it goes into a political fund. That political fund, our members have voted that there will be 2 campaigns that they have funded and continue to fund for at least the last 8 years. That is the Walmart Workers Campaign and the Agriculture Workers Campaign across North America. And the funds that are spent for the Agriculture Workers Program are to deal with the overall issue that our workers support, and that's from field to table, that our members can provide better service if they're in a unionized and democratic process. And if you think about a farm worker, do they have a washroom? Do they have a place where they can wash their hands? If they don't, how safe is your food? And when you talk in those basic terms to our members and to the Canadian population, people start to understand what we're talking about. These are not monetary issues that we're fighting for with agriculture workers in this country. These are dignity and respect. This is about having a grievance procedure, about not being repatriated for standing up and talking about health and safety, being able to have discussions with your employer about the dangers on a farm. So we're talking about the very basic seniority, recall, a grievance procedure. We're not trying to bankrupt farms. We're not trying to put our employers out of business. And this notion that the food supply in Canada is in jeopardy because we're trying to unionize farm workers is a crock, an absolute crock. And I think people understand that. And this old notion that the poor family farm cannot endure, the poor family farms are almost gone. They've been wiped out by corporate factory farms in this country and across North America and globally around the world. And so we're not talking about small family farms. We're talking about monster corporations who have 800 employees in one mushroom farm. That's not a family farm. It may be owned by one family, but it's not a family farm. Let's be clear about that. So we're really dealing with a change in how our food is grown in Canada, and the use of cheap exploitable labor in order to make massive profits. And we've dealt with that in other sectors, in the steel industry, in the garment industry, and the notions are the same. This is about greed. This is about profit, and don't let the argument of the poor family farm scare people. This is not who we're dealing with. This is not what we're trying to deal with. These are corporate factory farms. The 3 farms we organized in Ontario to challenge the ban on unions in that province, one had 300 employees, one had 120 employees, the other one had 60 employees. That's a mushroom farm, a greenhouse, and a chicken hatchery. These aren't small operations. They're not family farms, and I think when Canadians understand that, they support us, and we're trying to get that message out to people.
Do you see progress despite all the setbacks?
I see a lot of progress. I see progress on the ground in our centers with workers who are learning their rights, becoming educated about the English language, basic literacy. I mean, we run all kinds of different programs at our centers. It's not just about unionization. Again, it's about basic dignity and respect. It's about being included in the community because they deserve to. These are hardworking people. They're here to make money, but they're here for 8 months. Some are here for 4 years now under these programs, and they're part of our community. And our community, I think, is obliged to reach out and see who these neighbors are and assist them when they can, and work with us to make their lives a little bit better and hopefully improve our food system and help them to provide for their families. Because to be realistic, a lot of Canadians don't want to do this dirty and dangerous and sometimes deadly work. And so we bring people in, and we should be treating them with dignity and respect.
Completely agree. Congratulations on the work, and keep up the fight.
Thank you.